Hello everyone, this is Two Turn Studios head dev, and we are going to be starting this Unity 3D and C Sharp development for absolute beginners. We're doing 2D, bare bones, basics, absolute beginners. So if you're familiar with coding or Unity, maybe not the tutorial for you, but if you're new to programming, new to game development, this is your tutorial for you. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to download the Unity Hub here, or choose your Unity download. It will bring you up, for instance, if you go to choose your Unity download, you're going to want to go to individual, and you want to do personal. Why? Because frankly, unless you know you're going to be making a lot of money or you're already at a studio, you don't want pro. Personal gives you everything you need for Unity. Everything I've made is in Unity has been on the personal version. Student, if you're a student, you get a couple extra gifts too, but you need a student ID. But personal, you'll download the Unity Hub. Here, you'll download, hold on, let me cancel. You'll go to installs and you'll install an editor. Whatever the recommended version on LTS go with, just trust me on that. Most stable version. Also, once that's installed, I'm assuming you're all familiar with the process. Anything that's standard, just go next, choose your install location, all that's good. Next, you're going to install Visual Studio Code. It's code.visualstudio.com. Do not get regular Visual Studio. I repeat, do not get regular Visual Studio. It will try to charge you because Visual Studio Code is a text editor. It is a code editor. Visual Studio is a whole application development suite for Microsoft C# applications. Anyway, you'll download that, you'll install it, you'll get this. So how are we going to create a Unity project? We're going to go into projects, we're going to create a new project. Project name, tutorial project. We're going to do 2D. For this tutorial, you're going to want to do 2D. If you want to follow along, do 2D. And you don't want to do example scene because that'll have a lot of stuff out of it that you might not understand at the moment. So we're going to click 2D. We're going to click create project. And it's going to take a minute to load the project. So we'll just skip ahead once this is done. So something I forgot to mention, it will probably make you create a Unity ID, which just use an email that you generally use. It'll give you your login, password reset, and all that good stuff. There are a couple Unity features that we may be using in the future in this tutorial. I'm not sure yet, but let's get right into it. Now, this may look a little overwhelming, but we're going to go through every single thing in these panels right now. But first things first, if your Unity editor has an update, it'll say it pop up. I generally don't download a new version unless I'm having issues, so we'll just exit out of that. So first things first, we're going to check out the top tab. This will have your project name, what your scene name is, what your current build is, whether that's PC, Mac, and Linux standalone, or Android or iPhone, and then the Unity version you have. So the project, this is where all your game files are. If you've ever seen a leak regarding a game that says, oh, there was a file dump, that is basically what the project will hold. Any assets, sprites, scripts, textures, sound effects, music, etc., all that's going to be in the project. Now, this is just what folder you're in. So this is like the directory, like in File Explorer, and this is the window here. Start with the sample scene and main camera. I'll get into those in a minute. So hierarchy. Hierarchy is basically all the objects that are in your game. So when you create any of these objects, when it's in here, it is accessible at least in the game. So think of this as a back end and this is a front end, like an invisible back end to a computer or a server. It's like a back end that you can't see or doesn't exist, while this is the front end and more directly the stuff that works with the back end and the front end. If that's a little hard to explain, yeah, We'll get it. It'll make more sense in the future. So inspector, when you click on an object in the hierarchy, it'll bring up the inspector. Don't worry, we'll go over all of these on on all these different objects eventually. Like I said, tutorial for absolute beginners. Project settings. A lot of this you really don't have to mess with until you're getting closer to finishing your project or certain things that you need. Like services, you don't really need to mess around with that at all now. Really, the things that you're going to be messing with the most in project settings at the moment is player, not editor, player, physics 2D, and possibly input manager if you're doing a controller. So console, this is where all the error messages, crash messages, etc. are going to be displayed. So when your game crashes or you have or a player ends the game, the log file will pretty much be whatever's written out in here in the build. Animation, now animation will be a separate video. So you don't have to worry about animation right now. You don't have to worry about animator either. That's related to animation. Very closely related, obviously. So scene. Scene is like your landscape. It's your canvas. So if say you're a game developer and you're a painter, the scene is your canvas and your paint tools. You basically get to mix match around everything. You get to mix match around everything and move all the objects, anything else that's included. We'll get into all the objects, like I said, in a future video. And then you can go as far away in space as Unity allows, which is an insane amount of space. And this is basically where you build your world. This is where you build your world in Unity. Game is what will show up in the game. And in order to have a game view, you need a camera. Let's go back in the inspector. And as you see, the main camera is set up with the standard features. This should be the standard when you create a new camera. And if you see here, this is where the camera is pointing at. So the camera is only catching in all of these. Now we'll get around to moving the camera in a later video when we get around to moving objects. But like I said, this is just basically the windows and all the tabs. So now that that's covered, let's go over a couple things in the scene. This, don't mess with this, not a big deal. Just leave it as it is. There's no reason to mess with it right now, especially if you're a beginner. 2D, it really just toggles between locking the Z axis, which I'll get into the axes in a minute. But this toggles between 2D and 3D. 2D freezes the Z axis. That's all you need to know right now. Lighting, this just basically turns on and off any lighting that is included, which would be in UI, or light. Sorry, not UI, light. Basically any light that you create, you can toggle that to look if it's on or off. This is sound, so you can toggle the audio on and off in the scene. Skybox, fog, yeah, I don't mess with this either. I really don't. There's no really point messing with it at the moment. Hidden objects, we'll get into hidden objects in a minute, but basically hidden objects is if anything is in your hierarchy, and you click hidden here, it won't show up. So say there's a cube in here, and you click hidden, it's not going to show up. But if you click this, it'll show. Gizmos, don't mess with this. As you can tell, a lot of this stuff you really don't want to mess with because, you'll probably just mess things up for future recognition of what everything looks like. So we're going to go over each of these tabs. File, create a new scene, open a previous scene, open recent scene, save and save as. Now, what's important to know is save and save as here. That will save your scene. That will not save your project. That will save your scene. You have to click Save Project to save your project. Or you can always, hit Control S, or just save as Control Shift S. And if you create a new scene, when you create a new scene, or scene. Been a while since I made a new scene. Here it is. So when you create a new scene, it'll ask you to save it. You can always save it as something else. Edit or build settings. Yeah, build settings. This is where you'll create your build. We'll get more into the build settings in a minute. You'll click build, and you'll basically pick a location where to put it. Not a whole lot to know other than that at the moment. Edit. It brings up basically all the basic edits, select all objects. A lot of these are basically things that may be included on screen, clicking, etc. We'll get into project settings and all this in another video. Assets. Assets, this is how you create an asset. You can also right-click to create a new asset in hierarchy. What's important, though, is if you have a sprite or something you create in a different app, you click Import New Asset, and it'll bring up a file explorer that you import it in. Import package, not important right now. That's if you're importing a custom Unity package, which we don't plan to. None of these other ones are entirely important right now. So we're going to go into Game Object. This is also creating something in the hierarchy. As you see, light direction light, as you see here. Basically the same thing as right-clicking in hierarchy. Component is where you're going to create anything that is in the project. So physics 2, right now, let's see if there's anything we can create. Let's create a basic. There's really not a whole lot I can do at the moment, but that's basically what component will create. It creates a component. Window, this is where all your separate windows are. There are some windows that aren't showing up at the moment, and that's because they're not needed at the moment. This is all you need. So something else to know, you can drag in one of these tabs as a window and go anywhere else. So, and then there's help, which help is basically all you need to know if it helps you. Anyway, I hope that helped out. I will be making another video soon, and I'll talk to you all next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video.